How do you build something modern without drowning out the voice of the past? This time, on an architect's perspective, I'm exploring quiet modernism. And to do that, I've come to Norway, to a town called Hamar, to witness Sverre Fehn's transformation of the Storhamar Barn. I began my journey in Oslo, where the air is sharp and the light sits low, a city shaped by its long artistic lineage. Just a few streets from the city centre, you'll find the Norwegian Architecture Museum, which Sverre Fehn was invited to extend in 2008. His addition sits lightly beside the historic building, a glass bridge, and a quiet insertion of steel and timber. We leave the capital behind. 2 hours north of Oslo lies Hamar, a small town with a long memory, a town framed by Lake Mjøsa. A cathedral stripped to its bones in the Reformation is now covered in glass. And next door, the Storhamar Barn. The Storhamar Barn was originally part of a 13th century episcopal estate. After the Reformation, the estate was dismantled, and over centuries the barn fell into ruin. In the 1960s, Fehn was invited to transform it into a museum, but he didn't restore it in the traditional sense. Instead, what he gave back was a framework, a structure that protects but never conceals. Concrete walkways float above ancient stones. Wooden ramps and steel rods touch lightly on the historic surface. This is not a nostalgic renovation. It's a quiet dialogue between the past and the present. And since its construction, the Storhamar Barn has become a landmark in thinking about architectural conservation. I'm lucky enough to be joined by Professor Per Olav, a man who worked closely with Sverre Fehn and who once studied under the great Louis Kahn. He'll guide me through the building and help unearth Fehn's ideas. But before we begin, Linda Friedrichsberg sets the historical context.
This is Anno Museum Domkirkeodden. It's a medieval museum and a folk museum. It was the fifth medieval diocese in Norway, established in 1152. After the Reformation, the latest Catholic bishop in Norway, he was living here and he was taken prisoner by Danish soldiers and brought to Denmark. And after that, this was a place where the king's men in the area could live. This was also a place for attack during the Scandinavian 7 Years' War. So in 1567, Swedish soldiers came here, they plundered the place and they blew it up with their cannons. And it lay like that for 150 years until 1716, when it was first bought by a farmer. From the ruins of the castle, he built the barn. After the World War II, the museum got hold of the barn and they started excavating the area. And they found so many interesting items in the ground, but they had nowhere to put it on display. Per Martin Tvengsberg, he was actually the director of the museum.
He had been a student of Sverre Fehn at the Oslo School of Architecture.
So that's why he reached out to Fehn.
Roughly, when did work actually begin?
1967, I think,
67.
The first commission.
We understand this is the last building that Fehn designed and built here. Maybe you could just tell us more about this particular space before we move on.
We certainly stand in a ruin, right? And that ruin is architecturally not touched by the new structure. Already from the beginning to the end is very much a respect for the ruin itself.
Yes.
That the ruin itself is alive. Is alive. Take it or leave it.
Per, thank you. You and I are going to continue and walk around the rest of the building. Linda, thank you very much for setting the history of this building. We'll lead on.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you for coming. Good luck on the rest of the tour.
Thanks so much.
I was in Fehn's office and he asked me to do the presentation drawings for the museum.
Okay.
And I was drawing this ramp and I said to Fehn, isn't this a little abrupt? He simply cut me off and said, no, this is the way that it's to be.
So you were in charge of the presentation drawings?
Yes.
Did you have any other small little design battles with Fehn with regards to similar areas
No,
to this?
I can't remember that.
But generally you're on the same page together design-wise?
Yeah, it was interesting working with him also in the office, because we started early in the morning. He maybe came in with a sketch and he asked us to follow that sketch to a certain degree. Then he went out teaching almost every day at 1 o'clock.
In Oslo?
In Oslo, after lunch at the Oslo school. And then he came back and he looked at what we have done and he said, "Oh, is that the way it's going to be?" And then you knew it was just starting all over again.
Oh.
And we continue like that until his room picture, as he said, is the image is in his mind that he named the room picture. And he said, when my drawing is within the temperament of the room picture, then the project is there.
So Per, we're now at the western flank. Maybe you could just tell us a little bit more about this space and what we see around us.
You see the different materials through different time aspects, different time age, coming together, right? In which stone, concrete, the glass, and wood coming together. And of course, he says very clearly that you can never run after the past. You will never reach it. You can only do it by bringing out your own present into the discussion.
And to a certain extent, from what I understand, this ramp in other parts of the building was a way in which to look down into the past.
It's a road through the ruin. One should look down into the ruin. One should have a feeling that the earth was coming up and that the new added structure was coming down to that.
Yeah.
You can see here, that's the cellar wall. They are from the Middle Ages.
Yeah.
The idea of the bridge was not just the idea of the bridge itself, but it was sort of the relationship between heaven and earth. He says that one of the most difficult architectural decisions is where to put people between heaven and earth. And he called that an architectural horizon. Fehn's treatment of the ruin is essential. The belief that the ruin itself had a clear architectural identity.
Right.
And he wanted to respect that identity. For example, here, the light of the ruin itself coming in. This was the opening.
Yes, yeah.
And it's just a sheet of glass that is laying outside it. There's no frame, it's just that relationship between these two materials.
Yeah. What influence do you think this museum has had on other architects that you're aware of?
Oh, I think it's have had a lot of impact in many different ways, including Japanese architecture.
Yes.
The purity in the museum has inspired numerous architects in different ways. I was with Ando here, and that was an amazing. They had contacts, particularly in the beginning of Ando's work, and Ando was here. Like most people entering here for the first time, in their confusion or where to go and not to go, they also becomes very quiet in a way. And that's sort of the key issue of the whole museum, that you are somewhat left alone in your own explanation or in your own interpretation what this is and what it is not. It has a certain type of mood in which you are not able to escape. And it's not a mood that belongs to that stone or that structure or that opening.
And do you think that's a mood that Ando listened to and responded to?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And that mood is defined by the materiality, the history, the acoustics?
All this, I would say, I'm using a word for it when When I tried to talk about that, I called it spatial energy.
Right.
It's an energy that is in the space itself that you are not really able to escape. Its release is your own thoughts.
You spoke about how structure is so important to him. Can you just tell us about how this is all suspended? I think we've got maybe 2 or 3 columns supporting this massive great ramp. Could you just tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, it's very much part of the philosophy of the whole place. For example, these 3 rooms stands on 1 column.
Right.
It was to touch the ruin as little as possible.
And that's not just the walls, that's the floor as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you feel that we've almost experienced it today, seasonal differences in terms of circulation?
Oh yeah, the idea of noise or voice,
Sure.
of people being outside, the sharpness of the light from the winter snow, and particularly then in the fall, when it's dark around 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The museum itself gets more and more introvert. The lack of light in the way that he does not have the same sharp shadow as that in his house. So therefore he often talks about sort of a space with no shadow per se.
Pierre, could you just talk about how Fehn would see the relationship between the display of the artifact and the actual artifact itself?
Well, I think he let the artifact go. He don't want to confuse his story with the artifact story. So the object is alone, but it gets a partner. It gets a support.
Yes. Yeah.
And in that relationship, you at times understand the object better.
Yes. Yeah.
Or in a different way. It was important for him that, you could see it from all sides,
Yes,
under
yeah.
and over,
Yeah.
and from that getting a scale.
And not on either sides, but different heights and levels.
He also was sensitive that the building should have a scale in which one understood. This is a scale of the old barn. Of course, there was a lot of critique on how can you display an object like this.
Oh, just reminded, what is this object?
It is a sled that you used to take on to church.
And why has he decided to display it vertically like this?
Well, you go to church, and inside there is a discussion or a talk on heaven. So these are on their way to heaven.
Right.
Another part of this is that he wanted you to see the whole sled. He wanted to see the structural identity of it.
Sort of as a look underneath it and
Right.
stuff like that. Yeah. Certainly given us a new relationship to typically they're
Right.
horizontally and
Right.
now vertically. Yeah, that's beautiful. So Pierre, we're on the northern part of the building. We've
Correct.
got north light coming down here.
Right.
Very legible, beautiful structure. Maybe you could just talk a little bit about this space.
Well, the interesting thing is sort of the way that we have now been on the plateau, we have been on the ground.
Yeah.
Then a ramp meets us again, and we see all the objects
Right.
in a different level. We see them anew
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
due to that the architectural horizon is different.
Yes.
Right? When you look at sort of the clarity that occur in each object, it's allowed to display itself exactly what it is, but nothing more.
Yeah.
Right? He don't want you to give you the story of the object. his philosophy related to that is your confrontation with the object. You have to make a dialogue. And it's very few museums in the world that is so precise on that. And of course, there's been a lot of critique that children does not understand it and so on in relation to that. But fortunately, the museum has been strong enough to accept that way of communicating with the object.
Yeah,
and of course, it is actually the same that occur with the building. It's a building within a building within a building. It's a space within a space that within a space.
Yes.
But they don't push upon each other.
I think this is an excellent opportunity, Per, to say thank you for your time and thank you for showing us around. It's been illuminating to have your insight as a person that worked with Fehn on this building, to get your comments and thoughts. Thank you so much for your help.
Well, you're certainly welcome, and thank you for your interest.
Thank you very much. Quiet modernism doesn't demand your attention, it rewards it. Fehn's work here teaches us that to preserve is not always to protect, but sometimes simply to bear witness, to make space around the past so it can speak. He said to build is to interpret the past, not to imitate it. In the barn at Hamar, time is layered and carefully preserved, and if you listen closely, you'll hear it. Next time on An Architect's Perspective, I sit down with Professor Per Olav to explore the Storhamar Barn, one of the most influential buildings of the 20th century. We discuss Fehn's philosophy, his relationship to Louis Kahn, and how this building continues to reshape thinking around conservation and contemporary design. The full video will be available on YouTube if you'd like to watch, or if you prefer to listen, just search for An Architect's Perspective wherever you get your podcasts.